What's up, everyone? Welcome to yet another exciting and insightful episode of the AccountabiliTea Podcast. My name is Blessing Anolaba and I am your host. Today, we're going to be talking about equal representation in governance, the reality. Think for a second how many marginalized groups we have equally represented in governance, or perhaps how accessible are social amenities to these marginalized groups. So come with us as we delve deep into the conversation. But hey, I won't be doing this alone. With me here on the pod is Justin. Justin is a human rights activist and a feminist. And Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Blessing.
Jennifer is an advocate for persons with disabilities. She's also a feminist and a human rights activist. Welcome. Welcome to the both of you.
Thank you, Blessing.
Welcome to our pod. Good to have you here.
Hi, Justin.
We're talking about equal representation in governance. What are your thoughts? Jennifer, I would like to start with you.
All right. So, when you say equal representation in governance, I just think that phrase shouldn't even be cut off because governance means representation. And because if you look at the term governance, is built on core principles such as accountability, participation, and social justice. So it means for a government to work, there has to be equal representation. There has to be representation and participation, because if there is no participation, there will be no governance. Okay. So governance, one of the core principles of governance has to be participation and equal representation. So for me, I just feel like the phrase equal representation shouldn't even be talked about in governance, because governance itself has representation and equal participation embedded into the term governance. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. How about you, Justin? What do you think about equal representation in governance? Where are we at currently in Nigeria when it comes to equal representation in governance?
Well, I think Jennifer has really said that, what it's supposed to be. But again, just to say that it would then depend on the kind of governance that we are operating or that we are running. So there's all the conversation around how do we make the governance system or the type of governance friendly and accessible and one that is citizen-centered, right? So, but coming to the Nigerian context, we like to parade that we're a democracy or we're a democratic state, but I do not think this is like the practice in reality. We have the structures for a democratic government, but in implementation and in practice, I do not think that it is what it is. But just like Jennifer has said, there is the core tenets of governance is to be inclusive, to be representative of every one of its citizens, and also to be accountable to those same citizens. So I think I would like to ride on Blessings. Jennifer's
opinion. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for your thoughts. Jennifer, I would like to ask you this question specifically, and I would just like you to share your thoughts on accessibility. You know, we talked about marginalized groups, particularly persons with disabilities. With respect to social amenities now, healthcare, roads, bridges, buildings, I'm not sure how many bridges we have here in Abuja with ramps on it, you know. So what are your thoughts basically about? What would you say?
Okay, so talking about ramps, there are bridges that have ramps. The only issue is that the ramps are not meant for people with disabilities. The ramps are there, but they're not for people with disabilities because the way they are structured, they're not disability friendly. So I think sometimes there is a misinformation, or should I say misplanning, or some sort of afterthought when it comes to people with disabilities. So we live in a society, especially in the context of Nigeria, where people program for people and forget that there are people who have disabilities in Nigeria. So when the issue comes up, they're like, oh, we forgot. And if you even look at the 1999 Constitution, which our democracy is built on, people with disabilities are not involved or included in the Constitution, because sections of the Constitution has given right to having access to things like information, access to roads and all. But if you look at it, it does not give any sufficer for people with disabilities. So if Justin has the right to information. I also have right to information. But how accessible is that information made available to someone who is deaf? Say, for example.
Yeah.
And then also when we talk about accessibility for people with disability, people with disabilities, there's always this context of a one-size-fits-all approach. Disability is not something that is, how do I put it? Let me say, for example, before my disability, I have a personality and individuality.
Okay.
There are things my individuality is not built to conform to aside my disability. So if you put my disability together with my I'm a different person, let's say, to someone with the same type of disability with me. So sometimes when people are programming or talking about accessibility, they think everybody needs a ramp because they have physical disabilities.
Yeah.
Not everyone who has a physical disability would need a ramp, because someone with an upper arm amputation does not have a need for a ramp. So if you put a ramp there and say you have put something for people with disabilities, that person does not need a ramp. The person has other forms of accessibilities that you could provide for them. And then most times accessibility is seen in terms of just physical structures in Nigeria. For example, when you talked about hospitals, when you go to most hospitals in Nigeria, they'll tell you they have a RAM, they have easy access, but then how about sign language interpreters? How about braille informations?
Yeah.
Because actually, you are not supposed to give my health information to someone else.
Yeah.
You have to give it directly to me. So most times, if a deaf person goes to the hospital now, the information has to pass through a third party, which is a sign language interpreter, who is not a professional, and the person gets to know about the person's personal health information, which is wrong. So I think accessibility in Nigeria, first, the issues with accessibility is programs are made with a one-size-fits-all approach, which disability is seen as everyone has the same needs. We don't have the same needs as people with disabilities, and disability, no two disabilities are the same. So disability is not first a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to accessibility. The second thing is disability is perceived to be expensive. Because
How do you mean?
People perceive disability to be expensive.
Okay.
Okay, let's say, for example, this building has to be restructured for it to be accommodating to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
You will first think about the cost of renovation. But do you know, in the end, it is more expensive to exclude me, because the same knowledge you wanted me to have. Okay, say for example, you are working on SDGs and you are trying to reduce maybe inequalities and hunger and inform people, and I need that information, but I will not be able to access this information because your building is not accessible to me. So you will be thinking about the cost of renovating, why the cost of excluding me is higher. It's like you are doing a programming for people and leaving out particular people out of it. And another thing is disability is always perceived as an afterthought. So when planning, you cannot assume for people with disabilities. If you are building a program and you need the program to be inclusive, from the initial stage of building this program, you include people with disabilities. Don't include me, maybe you just include Jennifer and you think you have included everybody. I don't know the challenges that a deaf woman, because I am not deaf. I may just understand, but I am not deaf, so I cannot tell you in reality or with full experiences what the challenges of a deaf person or a blind person or a wheelchair user is.
Social spaces are also very, very discriminatory. In Nigeria, you're looking at churches, like most churches are the most unaccessible place, and we know the role church congregation play in the society.
Exactly.
Looking at banks are very another most unaccessible places, and we're not just talking about ramps as well.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something about the ramps here are not meant for persons with disability, because I see a lot of ramp, even me with my both legs.
You can't use them, right?
I will fall because
so imagine they're so steep, and
they're so steep that like if you put a wheelchair, you just somersault. So it's not about making these things, or we've put them just to tick the marker. Like, what are the parameters that you're using to put this?
And then again, you have to think: is there an agency that has to look out if this
Yes,
there
if this is, yeah.
actually is. But you see, this is the system we are in, where the agencies come there, and then most time maybe they take incentives and they just go away, not minding how it is done. There's a building code for
For
Nigeria,
Nigeria.
which means every building has a code and has to operate by that code. But most times you see that these things are not put in place. And another thing that is very prominent is that people feel disability just starts and ends with people with physical disabilities or people
Okay.
who are visually impaired. But there are also other types of disabilities that in Nigeria are yet to even be recognized.
Recognize it.
Let's say talk about people with Down syndrome. Do you see them in programming, even within the disability communities? Talk about people with autism, people with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities
Neurodivergence, yeah.
that are not neurodivergent. They are not even included. So
Mental health
we have not
problems.
we've not even started. We've not even gotten it right with people with physical disabilities. So talk more about people with neurodivergent disabilities that we're just discovering. So it's such a big work, but it's all we need for disability inclusion is intentionality. If people are intentional, if our society begins to become intentional and not just wait for the time and then you need someone with disability to participate, and just like the experience we've had, and then you remember that actually we could actually be accessible. So we need that intentionality.
So I like your thoughts so far, but I just thought to ask beyond the social amenities now. Looking at the number of marginalized groups we have in governance, I was in a training recently, and we were analyzing a data about the number of voters. I think that was last 2019 elections, and we saw that about 80% of the number of voters we had recorded for that year, 80% of them were vulnerable people and marginalized groups. But if you look at the number of those individuals from those vulnerable groups and all of that in governance, in politics, we can't find so many of them. So what would you say about, like, what do you think the government can do?
Okay, so when you talk about people's participation and you talk about the government is certainly going to tell you that there are no restrictions to participation, because there's no policy that restricts you as a person with a disability or other marginalized communities to actually participate. But these things are embedded in attitudes and systems
Systemic,
that are
yeah.
so that
Norms.
they are so silent, but they are existing. So you don't need. It's just like there's an adage that says you don't need to tell a blind man he's touching fire when he touches it. So there are some barriers and some form of restrictions that are placed in these things. People with disabilities, it doesn't just their lack of participation doesn't just start. It starts from their foundation, the way they are treated in their homes, to their communities, and then that confidence is not there. There's that gap between. And even in the disability community, say for example, I wasn't born with a disability, so I've lived most of my teenage life before I had a disability. So I had a different foundation from someone who was born with a disability from day one. Like there's a gap, there's a difference between myself and that person, because I have a taste of what ability is, but for them they have no taste. So
Of
their
what the
level
other
of
side is.
confidence will be way lesser than mine. I would be able to take up initiative or even think of some things because I know where I'm coming from. But for this person, all they've known is marginalization all through their lives.
Let's talk a bit about the queer community. What do you think, Justin? We know that it's not legalized in Nigeria, but we see how they can be. They have been excluded, from governance and all of that. Sometimes when they go to access healthcare, for instance, they are perceived a certain way, and with the eyes rolling and everything, they are forced to leave the premises. What are your thoughts generally? What do you have to say?
Well, I just think it's something that it's still all of the same lack of inclusiveness and understanding. The conversation around discrimination of LGBTQI persons in Nigeria, it's and in Africa generally, it's a thing about it has a lot of colonial touches and hands all over the conversation, because then if we can be able to like see ourselves beyond or away from colonizations, we see that Africa is not inherently discriminative. Africa is not inherently homophobic or bad, right?
Yeah.
Because now we've brought people, there are people in this society who love differently, who appear differently, and like for a very long time we've seen these people in our cultures, in our traditions, like from even from our traditions, like Africa is inherently accommodating and fluid in expression, right? So this is the conversation that we are supposed to be having, like how is this, and not just thinking that, oh, somebody went to, like, the conversation around, oh, people is a white people thing, right? So I just wanted to start by saying that, and also to say that denial is erasure. We've had a president of this country go to the international grounds to say that, oh, Nigeria does not have LGBTQI people, and that erases people or the nation from being accountable or accounting for who they are, how they live, how they are able to access healthcare, and then you can deny that these things do not happen, right? We see a lot of it's not just even people who are visibly known as queer. There's a way you go to like a Nigerian facility, and maybe you just exhibit somehow, and you just start facing discrimination immediately,
Exactly.
right? You just see, even in jobs, like now, I know a masculine presenting woman who I do not even think she's queer to start with. But she's a lawyer, and now she's not feeling comfortable wearing skirt, but now she has to wear skirt to court. She has to, like, all those kind of, but if you see her side of those things, she's like wearing her jean, her sneakers and all of that, and working and doing her thing. So which bank will employ a masculine presenting woman? Because then they will not wear skirt and dress all of those corporate. So it's just, again, standards of societal norms, right? From the hospital to, if you go to the hospital now as a queer man and maybe you exhibit a little bit of femininity, the first thing the doctors will do, no matter your complaint, is to recommend HIV test for you.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the first thing they will do, because there's this perception that, oh, HIV burden is more amongst
Prominent in gay men.
in
Yeah.
gay men.
But what if he's
Right.
just doing his job?
He's not doing any job. That's not his job.
No,
First of all,
that's
even the
true.
code, even the health code is that, like, you're coming, you say you have headache. Like, what's I know that some sickness present like symptoms that are like, you can have headache in malaria, have headache in HIV, and have headache in fever. But then, why is your first call to recommend for HIV test?
Yeah.
For
But you know
this
that
person?
won't happen with someone
With-
who's
yes.
not presenting in that
like
way.
in that way. So
Yeah.
people-
I've actually sorry
It's
to cut
okay.
you short. I've actually been to the hospital, right? And I was told to carry out some tests that it felt a bit weird. So what makes that community special? Like why is it a bother?
Well, it's
Why
a
should it
border.
even be a
It's-
border?
It is a border because now you're sitting here, you can just work and maybe, like, okay, I'm not even going to go deeper. Like, it is.
Please
I
go
do not
deeper
say-
if you have
I
to.
do not say they are not. I do not say they are not. They are special in a way that they are asking for something different that every
Okay.
other person is receiving. They
Okay.
are not saying, or the community is not saying, oh, we want a special throne or a special place on earth, a special kind of right. It is just the same rights that is being accorded to every other person in the country that they are asking to be accorded to them. And if we're going to talk about something special, we're going to talk about the fact that, well, I can be walking on the road and I can be lynched. That cannot happen to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They can be working on, like, we're just starting
Discussing
this
this
morning,
morning,
like a
yeah.
trans woman was just butchered like that. And first of all, the police is not going to launch an investigation into what happened.
So
right?
sad.
And they are dead like that. Their family is not going to come out. Right? And this person might just be thrown into one hole and covered. Right? Even the people who love them cannot mourn for them openly or publicly.
Exactly.
Right? So imagine that, right? Or the fact that your life is constantly risk. We know what happened during the NSAS protest. We're all protesting to end police brutality, and queer people who face the harshest amount of police brutality in this country came out to join the protest, and protesters turned on them. And you were being beaten inside protest. Like, we're all protesting for the same thing, but because, I'm protesting as a queer person not to be attacked by the police, and the country,
Yeah, it's
like people turned, right? So this is, if you're asking for that,
and you're like,
what is
I
special?
thought we're
Then these
fighting
are the
for the
special
same thing.
things,
Yeah.
because your life is not constantly at risk, right? The only people that face the same level of issues or violence that queer people face is women. But even at that,
There are levels.
there are levels to
to
them,
the- yeah.
right? Because these people are often perceived as lower, dirty, ordered and all of that. So you see, from healthcare, from employment, from family relation, like a lot of queer people are living outside of their family now because they have been like ostracized from their family. Like they go to school, you get bullied in school for maybe being too effeminate or maybe for being too masculine presenting as a woman. Like every day of your life from the day like you're born. Like I was speaking to a queer person, and the person said, I just wish I was a child when I didn't know anything, because you see yourself, like even people who are, especially even for those who are not out, even people who are like close to your family does not know you. Like it feels like you're living in an alternative universe. Like you're just in your head, and then there is the family people who just think that from the point that you discover there is something different about you, like your whole world changes, because you begin to navigate with more caution. You begin to look out for where you're going to. Somebody might just be passing on their own, you start being scared. So there is, in as much as we are laughing, it's like really a very big problem. Like we know a lot of people who has lost their lives, like killed in their homes, evicted from their houses unjustly, and they cannot even report, because every time we've had, like working in a human rights organization, that we get report a lot of the time where maybe someone has brutalized you and you go to report, or someone has stolen from you, a neighbor has wronged you, a landlord has wronged you. Immediately go to the police to report. And if the person knows you're queer, they just have to bring that up to the police, and the situation will just leave the fact that, oh, you were evicted wrongly, you were sacked from your job wrongly, and turn on you the fact that you're a queer person. And the reporter, the person you came to report will be going home. Why you that came to report will be in prison, right? It's also the fact that the country is not also aware of lots of these conversations, right? We know that there are families who, like, their children has come out to a square and they've accepted them quietly, but
in Nigeria.
A lot of that, a lot of that, but they don't want to make it a problem. They don't want to talk about it, because there's also a hush culture within this country where people are doing a lot of terrible things and or good things, but nobody talks about them, right? So it is not about being special in a good way. That being special is not a special you want for yourself, right? Because then it looks like you're negotiating your life with like citizens who are supposed to be in the same rights, enjoying the same. You're supposed to be enjoying the same rights with. You're just literally saying, "Oh, do not kill me. I'm just existing." Like, and all of
So
that.
I'm just thinking, Justin. You know how they say being queer is illegal in Nigeria, and it makes me think most often people born queer or people decide to be queer, because when you say something is illegal, it means it's something like, okay, for instance, smoking of or using hard drugs is illegal. I wasn't born in a way or constructed to use hard drugs to survive. You understand? So if you make that illegal, it means I can survive. Like, not taking drugs is not going to do any harm to me. Rather, taking drugs is going to do harm to me. So I understand why taking drugs is illegal. So when the government says being queer is illegal in Nigeria, it makes me think, is it that people who are queer just decide to be queer and the government is trying to say don't do this? Or just like the way having an abortion is illegal in Nigeria, this is because the government on its own claims that there's a life to be protected and all that. So I want to understand, now, if the government says being queer is illegal, why are people queer?
So
Good question. Yeah,
I wish I could answer for everybody, but
we just have to talk about this.
Yeah, first of all, being queer is not illegal in Nigeria, to start with.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, the Same-Sex Marriage Prohibition Act and the Criminal Code and the Penal Codes were sections of criminalization of LGBTQI. It's actually not an identity criminalization. It's an act criminalization. You cannot say, the government cannot arrest you for saying, oh, you're gay, you're lesbian, you're trans. The government cannot. There's no law that prohibits you from identifying. The laws only talk about being caught in the act of marriage, like joining in legal union, or in the act of practice, right? So it's more of an identity. It's not an identity criminalization. Like the government cannot arrest you for being a woman. Yeah. Right?
Yes.
So they cannot
I'm a woman.
Yeah. They cannot also arrest you for being gay, being lesbian, being transgender, or an intersex person. It is just the practice. The laws criminalize the practice or association.
Sorry again. Because when you talk about the practice, there's also where a person breaches someone's privacy. Say, for example, I'm having sex, and how does the government intend to?
Exactly.
Because if I'm in my room, I'm having sex with whoever I want to have sex with. and you come into my room, there's also a place you have breached my privacy, because my room is my private, and you are trespassing
and
Yeah.
and invading my privacy. So imagine I'm in the room. Let's say, even in Nigeria, we don't talk about loud sex. Say, for example, I'm a lesbian woman and I'm with my partner and we are having sex and it's loud. And say my neighbors know it's a woman I'm with in the room, and it's obviously they're having sex and it's loud, and they decide to call the authorities. Do they have the right to break in on me and say they caught me in the act of homosexuality? And because you also mentioned you are a lawyer, so this is why these are the thoughts in my head,
crazy.
and I want to, because most times when we talk about being part of the LGBT community, it's illegal, and then now you talked about being caught in the act. Say, for example, I don't even want to marry the person I'm dating. Maybe I'm in a same-sex relationship, but we don't even intend to get married. We just intend to do our thing, and maybe we don't even have plans to marry, and we're just doing our thing. So that means, as long as nobody invades us, we're living our life. There's nothing illegal about what we are doing,
yeah.
and as long as we don't decide to get married, that means we are fine.
We're fine.
So it's
we're not
so
breaking the law.
the conversation is very. That's why I said a lot of people operate from a very ignorant place, right? First of all, let's even I talked about colonization of queer identities, or queer. We just, a lot of the problem in the society is because when people mention LGBTQ or people mention queer people, the first thing people think about is the sex, right? Is the sex part of it. No one is thinking about how. And to be very, nobody, if it's okay to be, like, if people get the right to choose whether to be queer or not, I don't think anybody would choose this life of penury where you're constantly in danger. Like, nobody would choose that, right? And we see a lot of people who have also argued the fact that, oh, this is a Western thing and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Like, if you read the Nigerian culture, if you look, I'm not even talking about Africa. Let's even leave Africa. Nigeria culture, you see a lot of queer practices that, I'm not just talking about sex, but I'm talking about queer practices like across the country. Like, in our culture as Nigeria, we are inherently a cross-dressing culture. Like, what is termed cross-dressing is what we are. Like, all the chiefs in my village tie wrapper, wear leg beads, put earrings, mark their tattoos, like put what is it called? Those things that are considered female things. Most chiefs from most traditions do it. Here, cover your hair with scarf. Even in religions, like wear gowns, tie wrapper, and all of that. That's why when Nigeria was about to pass the anti-cross-dressing bill, I was just laughing. All of us from here will go to prison, because everybody, if a woman and you wear a baseball hat, you're going to prison. It's actually what is termed as cross-dress. If you wear a trouser, prison. Like, all of us will go to prison. So it's the conversation about how we do not see this in our culture. There are many cultures that can be found around River State and Igbo lands where women can pay the diaries of women and marry them.
Yeah,
right?
I think I've read the documentary.
So it's not just
where women marry women.
Yes, it's a practice here, like some in River States, in like the south and southeast states. Like, so tradition has termed this that, oh, it is because maybe the woman did not give birth to a male child, but so she has to go and marry and bring in someone to bear an heir for the family. These are like cultures that, I'm not saying, oh, they're having sex. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I'm trying to say that this is the culture. Like, it's inherently queer. Another woman going to pay another woman's bride price. And this woman will be beholden to you as a man figure in the family and in the tradition, right? We hear women loosely calling other women, oh, my husband, now she marry me, and all of those kind of stuff. So we see that this is not inherently new. We've seen people who are cross-dressers, who cross-dressed as, I don't know if you know the popular area Scatter.
Yeah, the musician.
Who was a musician who cross-dressed, like,
that was like
wears
before
like
independence.
ties wrapper before independence, like plays for royalties, like kings in Igbo lands and all of those things, even in the Yoruba culture. So if something has a name in your language, then it's not foreign, it's not new, right? There's a thing that is currently happening in Nigeria that the government and the police do not want to look into. People create social media accounts and begin to track people who are similarly queer and want to be friends with them, and then you agree to meet, and just like normal, I can chat, hi, bless, like you texted me, oh, come to this, and then I come, and then you're lynched, your phone is taken away, your bank account is drained, you're beaten to pulp, and then they even start telling people on your, like, threatening that they will tell your family. Like, there's God. Like, this happens every other day, right? God. And how also the law enforcement are part of these issues, are part of these things. Like most of them work with law enforcement because then they get money from it. So like queer people has become cash cows for police and people generally. So it's not being special. I do not think you want to choose that kind
But
of special.
you talked about identity, right? And is it for those that want to identify as a lesbian man, a lesbian woman, beg your pardon, and all of that? What if they decide to take it a notch higher to say they want to get married?
I don't
and all?
care if they want. First of all,
So what happens
Nigeria
then?
would not even attend to you to start with. So you can go to another country. And get
Yeah,
married.
but I feel like that's you just putting yourself in
So,
a danger
yeah,
zone.
and I do not. Nobody would do that. Nobody has done that. Nobody would do that, right? Because it's illegal in the country. And even to say that homophobia and this hatred is even what is imported, if there's anything that is imported, because in the 1805, if you read history, you see that while Uganda has an openly gay man as a king in Uganda, Africa, that same time was the time that Great Britain is beheading 2 men for engaging in act of homosexuality. So you see how like it was celebratory in the African culture in the first place. Then before colonization, they came and said, you people need to enter into the social order of things. Like you people are too, everybody's doing everyhow. People are doing, that's when the construct about, what is feminine in dressing, what is feminine in masculine in dressing, what is this? They started to put into the social order, right? But Africa is more of a communal place where people are loved, where people are gathered together. There is a lot of solidarity between people. But now colonization has brought us to like more of an individualized lifestyle. If we're talking about decolonization and removing of Western ideology, I think we should start from religion. I don't have anything against religion, but I'm a very religious person. But it's the conversation around how Christian evangelicals from Russia, from the United States are coming to Africa. What they cannot do in their country because there's laws in place, people can be able to put their foot forward and stand up, are coming to do it in Africa by paying parliamentarians huge amount of money to sponsor a bill that they drafted, right? We know about these things. Like none of Nigerian parliamentarians, or Ghanaian parliamentarians or Uganda drafted those bills. They were all paid to promote those bills, family value, right? Because they want to like advance the far right movement, right? So you see how these things are not even things that are coming from within, are coming from within us. They are things that are coming from outside. And then we see a lot of things, conversations from women. You know, when they come into every country, right, we call them the anti-right groups, anti-gender groups. When they come into every country, the first thing they do is to attack LGBTQI people, because then they are like, this is the common enemy. Everybody will back us. Well, let's attack these people first and pass the law and criminalize these people. Once that is done, the next thing they are going to turn is on women's rights, right? They begin to roll back equality, gender equality, right? Currently now in Somalia, they removed Ministry of Gender and Women. Like they just changed the ministry to Ministry of Family and put a man there.
Oh, wow.
Right? So it's what is happening. So if you think that, it's only an LGBTQ problem or this is it's not what it is. Like it is governance. It is theories, like social theories that people want to promote their own hate, and then leaving patriarchy, men, capitalism as the order of the day.
Say, for example, if I wear a clothes, okay, let's say if I wear a man's clothes, my society is going to see me as a very decent person because I'm a woman. No part of my body is showing. I'm covered. But if a man decides to wear my clothes, there's a problem. But I can wear a man's clothes and there's no problem.
You know why? It's also patriarchal because men are perceived as the standard, and anything you're trying to remove. Okay, I'm trying to say something, but I hope it's not misconstrued. Right? There is
Please say it.
There is this standard. You know how you see masculine presenting women? They roll with guys like the hood guys, like they play football, they gist together. But those same men would frown at an effeminate presenting man.
Yes.
Do you know why? Because
masculinity
is presented as the standard, and they are worried that you, that is a man that has been elevated to this authority, you are trying to bring yourself down. It looks like, when your friend is not doing something that is like, I'm bringing you up, you're bringing yourself down. So that's how the conversation feels like. So like anything that ascribes to masculinity is seen as standards, right? So all of those conversations, which I do not think is supposed to be, because then we as a people, humans are naturally very fluid, right? And biology grows by the day. Like you see people currently now, we're seeing more intersex people being born in the country and globally and all of that. And we still see people who are coming out on social media to say, oh, why does a woman have beards? Or, those women are growing and say, they are wicked aunties, that's why they have beards. Or they are this and that. But that is that could be a strain of being an intersex person. A variation of intersex.
Yeah.
You see a lot of women who do not have ovaries, who do not
Children
ovulate, and then we are all in prayer house saying, oh, it's barren woman. But this woman does not even ovulate, so even like these are like intersex. But because people are ashamed of these things because they are perceived as outside of the standard of society, right? They are ashamed to talk about these things. I think there's the silence that goes on about a lot of things in the country is what makes things very bad, and we don't talk about them. In our culture before, like what we term indecent dressing was our norm. Women tie wrapper just over their chest and short things.
I've seen my grandma wear very, very short things in her pictures.
Their body is revealing. Why? Because people are conditioned, like dressing are conditioned by weather, right? All of this, like I keep saying, we cannot leave out colonization in the conversation that we are having, right? We cannot leave out colonization because all of this, wear suits, wear gown, wear this, wear that. It's because their weather there is cold, like extremely cold. And you're coming to tell a Nigerian woman who probably wore makeup, who is wearing bra, who is wearing pants, and who is wearing like innerwear to put on again another clothes. Like, are you not considering the weather, right? So this is not what we term indecent dressing in our culture before is how we dress, right? All of this wear 100 yards of clothes, wear these things are a colonial concept because they when they came, they thought that you are naked and you are a mad monkey. So they needed to give you clothes to cover.
Yeah. But
right, not considering
sorry,
give me a second. Not considering like our weather and all of that. Even what is called tattoo now, that is religiously seen as a bad boy mentality. Like we had tribal markers to identify what tribe you are from. Dreadlocks. These things are
anklets.
Like, if you go down in history. Anklets. Now, if you wear anklets, say you're a lesbian or a prostitute.
Yeah.
Like these are things that are inherent in our culture. We cannot talk about the current order of societies without going back to see what did we look like. A lot of things has been erased from colonization. Have you not wondered why we no longer teach history in our schools? Like because nobody wants to tell the truth about what is happening now. Everybody wants to like, especially from a religious point of view. Everybody look at the Hausa traditional religion. Nobody knows the tradition that Hausa people practice before Islam came to them. Now everyone is connoting Islam to the traditional religion.
You can't even tell apart a Hausa person's religion and their culture. And
their culture because now Islam has been like merged. So we cannot talk about. So when we talk about someone dressing to come out as a female and people should not frown or people should frown, well, I like to couch this kind of conversation because then I cannot speak for that experience. To couch it under, why don't you just mind your business? Right? Because this person is not stealing, they are not killing.
Exactly.
There are a lot of things to be bothered about in the country that doesn't bother people. And have you also noticed that whenever the government is failing in its responsibility, they bring up a topic and distract the masses? Like, and you see these things on social media, you're thinking it's just a random thing. These are deliberate acts of disinformation to
disrupt the line of information and focus.
People, right? See, like, if people don't understand how much power the government wields, like within a country, like which is not supposed to be, right? But because government. So you see how when a government, you see a senator, a House of Rep member will be there for almost 3 years and they will not do anything. They will not propose any bill. They will not do anything. But immediately it's a re-election year, LGBT, abortion, what popular topics that they know that people will support them to raise their popularity. So it's these are women issue, LGBTQ issue, and person with disability issues are popularized topics, political
to get
topics,
recognition,
right? To get recognition. Because if you ban LGBT, the church will support you, the majority of the community, and not because they even really care about what they are banning or what they are promoting.
Yeah. Sorry, I think I'll have to cut you because if we dwell so much on this, we're not going to leave here today.
Yeah. Well, that was a lot.
Okay, so back to the barrier, Jennifer. Just briefly, we talked about social norms, cultural norms. How people perceive persons with disabilities, and kind of think that they cannot fit into some political positions and all of that. What would be your recommendation? How do you think that we can approach this problem? because it's a problem. Yeah, talking about inclusion and equal representation in governance, we need more of persons with disabilities in governance. We need everyone to be equally represented, so that we can have like everybody included. So what would you say? What can the government do,
Okay, so
or what can the citizens do?
exactly. I don't
Yeah.
think it's just
A government problem.
the response of
Yeah.
a government, and because inclusion or the inclusion of people with disabilities does not just need it's an issue that need a multi-stakeholder approach.
Yeah.
Means we need everybody
To be involved.
to be involved, because you have to look at disability as something that is there's a thin line between your ability and your disability.
It just takes one event.
So when we talk about inclusion or disability accessibility, so we are looking at, it's not just me who is disabled,
Yeah.
it's whoever is going to become disabled tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just not limit it to the over 2 million people or 25 million people with disabilities in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Let us also look at tomorrow, or let's say the future. But when we talk about this, how to deal with these barriers, and we have to, like I said, we need a multi-stakeholder approach. We need everybody at every level. But mostly when we talk about the stigma, which are the most prominent barriers that people with disabilities face, because there are several barriers they face, but the most have to do with the attitudes from people. And then we have to start looking from both our religious angle, the tradition angle, before we even come to the government, because the governments also come from their religion and their cultures. That's why you see politicians, the best place they can go to canvass for vote is a church, or it's a traditional leader or a mosque, because they know these people are responsible for building the perception and perspectives of people. And then sometimes you even see in our homes, parents or people, let's say in the neighborhood, the best way they can describe, you see somebody with a disability becomes like a landmark for description to a location. You see someone, if you go back, I'm saying, because if you go back to my community, that's what happens. You see someone describe that once you just reach that street, there's one girl that used to sit inside wheelchair, she's there, you will see her. Like, that's how much people have relegated people with disabilities to take away their humanity and just
that's really sad.
Only
That's really
at their
sad.
disability. So there's already a disrupt at even the foundation level. Even our Bibles, they've never talked about people with disabilities who did things. Every person with a disability in the Bible was a beggar. They were just begging, or they were, you see that. So hearing it, and because there are times I'm walking on the road and someone just passes by and tries to give me 15 naira.
Oh, wow.
And I'm wondering in my mind, because that's the foundation this person has, that people with disabilities are beggars. You go to an office, you have a disability, maybe you are just going there to maybe look for information, and then the security people are going to tell you you are not allowed to go inside, because all they think you are coming here to beg. So this is how the society has fashed. So it is very difficult for people to see people with disabilities beyond their disabilities. That is why you see, if I say something now, people are just going to start saying, she's so intelligent. And I'm saying the normal, like,
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for sharing your personal experience.
And then when you talk about the media also, you see something happens. Maybe today I decide to get married. Nobody is going to call my name that Jennifer got married to the love of her life.
Disability woman.
A woman with disability, despite having a disability. You see.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jennifer. So quickly and finally, what is your vision for equal representation in Nigeria, putting all the marginalized groups together?
Well, I just think that the fact that we should practice an actual democracy would be great. And within the tenets of democracy is, first of all, human rights and equality, right? So everybody ought to be represented. Right? It also starts from the process. If we're going to have spaces for conversation, everybody, we should be asking who is in the room, who is not in the room, whose opinion do we need, looking at voting processes or election processes. How are the ballots inclusive for persons with disability? How are people who are like intersex persons like going to obtain a voter registration? Because, like I said, people who like grew up all their life as maybe as male and then later discover that they're having feminine feature, or people who transition medically to becoming transgender persons, how can they like be able to like register
Capture.
and being captured into voting processes, because then they are all part of the society, right? And government is about everybody who is part of the country, or even people who are visiting the country, like should be like brought into the umbrella. So I think there needs to be an honest conversation about where we are coming from as a people and what value guides us as generally as a nation. We need to understand that we are more alike and we should build more tolerance within ourselves. And then, like she said, educate yourself and let people educate you. It's not just and then it's okay to say, oh, I do not know, or I was here before but my perception has changed. Because what we need to look at, all the wars happening, all of the things happening globally in the country, violence, it's also because the first thing we do when something begins to happen is to ban, criminalize. That's all the response that the government knows: ban, criminalize, destroy, curfew. No one is talking about, a lot of people are, a lot of young men these days are doing hard drugs. Okay, what are we going to do? What
Do
will be the
about it?
intervention? But what will happen now is, shoot at sight, criminalize, destroy. Like, the government has so much punitive response to everything. So we need to begin to go away, like above punitive measures, to relate with people, because human interactions change and human interactions also improve things.
Humans are divergent. There's no one approach to being a human. Human are divergent, and it's just like saying I don't like mayonnaise and you like mayonnaise. It's okay you don't like mayonnaise. It's okay I like mayonnaise. It's not bad that I do.
I shouldn't kill you for it.
You shouldn't kill me for liking mayonnaise because you don't like mayonnaise. Nobody goes out and kills. A lot of people who say I don't like egusi, but you can't kill somebody for eating egusi.
People don't like egusi.
The most you can do is leave the place.
When I hear people don't like egusi,
So the
that's
most
on the side,
the most
that's
they
on
can
the
do
side.
is leave the place if it irritates them. But you can't stop other people from eating egusi.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jennifer. Thank you, Justin. Thank you all for watching. And just to say that even as you go about your everyday life, remember to embrace inclusion, say no to discrimination. Everybody is as important just as you are. So until next time, bye for now.